Hi everyone, this is Nicole Rivera and this is the Stop Writing Alone podcast for writers who are looking for their writing community. I know you want to find readers for your work, but I think your first step is to connect with other writers. That's what we're going to do here in the Stop Writing Alone podcast. We'll do writing prompts and other writing group activities, discover online writing communities, learn how to find local writing groups, or how to make your own. Join us as we explore, learn, and write. Hi, this is Nicole Rivera, and you're listening to the Stop Writing Alone podcast. Well, I took a bit of a family vacation, taking off the month of August and getting away. And I put everything in the Stop Writing Alone world on hold, including recording the podcast, going to the YouTube channel, social media, all of it, for the first time since starting the podcast. And it was really necessary, and I'm very happy that I did so, but it's back to school time, and everyone in my family is actually back in the building, out of home. So it's getting back to old routines, but they're so far out of my norm now that I feel like I am learning everything all over again. I don't know if anybody else is having this experience. So I'm just pretty much 2 days into being home alone in the house and trying to feel my way around here and trying to plan ahead, thinking about, what does this all look like now again? How do I do all of this Stop Writing Alone stuff in this type of routine and schedule? And what was interesting is that while I was away and while I was brainstorming on all of this, NaNoWriMo, which is the National Novel Writing Month community, made the announcement that for this year, in November of 2021, once again, they are not endorsing live events. And so as I was sitting here brainstorming about, okay, what is my world going to look like now that I can go back out and do things live, one of the big writing communities that I use is kind of like my North Star when it comes to planning and organizing, once again said, we're still going to do this thing virtual. So I don't know if anybody else heard that news and was disheartened by it or maybe encouraged by it, because it has been really wonderful to meet with community online. But one thing that I thought, I'm not sure I really ever went through here on Stop Writing Alone podcast is, how do you host an online writing event, and how do you really cultivate an online writing community? The whole point of Stop Writing Alone is to help you find writing community, but also to help you create writing community around you if you can't find one. So I wanted to just take this week's episode to run through the basics of how I meet with writing community online, really the nuts and bolts of it, but also like what are some of the things that I do, and give you some tools in case you want to take advantage of this November's sort of like boycott on live events and see if you can find your writing peeps that way. Because of course you're always welcome to join me in whatever events I'm doing. But if you're at a point where you want to start reaching out to people that are local to you and maybe don't feel comfortable doing it face-to-face yet, all of these tools that I've been using are available to everybody else. So there's lots of different types of writing events that you can do and lots of different ways that you can cultivate and find community online. But let's say you are in a position now where you're not just looking for a writing community, but you say, I now want to build a writing community. Where do you begin? Now, perhaps you already have a live writing group that you've just been trying to meet up with all this time, and if that's the case, give me a minute. I will get to the tools that you use to meet up with online, although I'm sure many people have already started doing this throughout the whole past year. But if you're still looking for a way to begin a group, post it online, where can you do so? I've got 4 different spaces that you can find your people and announce events and really begin for finding a regular writing community. And first is the same exact space that I would tell you to go to for live writing events, and that is Meetup.com. Meetup.com is where I have my Staten Island Writers Group posted. That's where I post events when we are meeting face-to-face. But throughout this whole past year, that's also where I've posted the Zoom links for the online events that I've been doing for the group. And Meetup was great. As soon as the pandemic happened, they sort of streamlined and allowed the place for your meetup to be an online event. And they work really well with Zoom, and that is the tool that I use to meet face-to-face with online writers. So it really works quite well. I think this is a really great space for you to enter into if your long-term goal is to meet face-to-face and you want to really engage with local writers. I would begin with Meetup. I would put in my zip code and just develop a Meetup group that is local and find the writers that are close to you. There is a fee for Meetup. It's annual. I pay just around $60, I believe, for my group. I have the smallest size group. I think it's either up to 50 members or up to 100 members. I don't remember the cutoff. And it's $60 per year. And you can charge people to be in Meetup. You could also charge people per event if you're, having an event. Again, this is talking about like live stuff. If you're having an event in a venue that costs money and you want to offset the costs, you can say this event is a paid event. You could have free events. Just as an example, for my Staten Island Writers Group, I have members pay $3 per year. So basically what that means is that everybody in Meetup gets the first month free so that they can try stuff out, see if they even like the Meetup group, they're, engage with the events that they're doing. Once that month is up, they're asked to pay $3, and then they're not asked to pay again for the entire year. I keep my group incredibly small so that $3 per person doesn't cover the full $60, but at least it helps me offset that in some way. That's a great space to find members, but also to announce events. So that's why I love that as a place to begin. Another place where you can find members and host events is, of course, in social media, on Facebook. If you create a Facebook group, you can create a Facebook group that is either, general to writers all over the place, or you can make a more specific writing group. You can make a Facebook group private and just be invite only. Let's say you already know the writers that you want to engage with. You can make your group private and then just only invite people that you know and that you permit into the group. You can make it public so that it can be searchable, and it'll start to pop up as suggestions for people who are in similar type groups. So it's really important when you create a Facebook group that you pick a category that is, appropriate. So of course you would pick writing, and you could write in different keywords if you want it to be location specific, you would write down your location. If you want it to be genre specific, maybe you just want a mystery writers group or a YA writers group or children's book writers group or erotica writers group, whatever it is. Those are the types of things that you can put in there, and then you can make sure that when you are discoverable, you're getting discovered by the right people. I happen to love Facebook groups. I don't love working for Zuckerberg, because essentially anytime you are creating something in social media, you are working for the social media. So I don't love that. But what I love about Facebook groups is that, Facebook is social media. So it is built to be social. So out of all of the spaces where I can meet writers online, it is the one that encourages the community to also engage and have conversations on their own and make posts of their own, and that it's not always just me speaking out to the group. It's also the group having the ability to engage with each other. That's only for Facebook groups. That's not true for Facebook pages. So you want to be clear about that distinction. But with Stop Writing Alone, I do have the Stop Writing Alone group that's general to everyone, but also when we have the Happy Campers Club, every single Happy Campers Club that I create a separate Facebook group that is specifically created for that group of people that are meeting with me for that month, and all of the events go in there, all the announcements go in there, but also the group members themselves can engage in conversations with one another right on the page. So I love that. Another space where you can post events, what your virtual events once you start creating them, which is open to discoverability, is Eventbrite. Eventbrite really blew up during the pandemic because so many people were just looking for things to do online while they were at home. And while Eventbrite used to be similar to Meetup, like very much about live events that were going on, once the pandemic struck, many online events went there. And so nowadays, people are seeking out online events on Eventbrite. So that is another option for you. Once you start cultivating various writing events, you can start to put them on Eventbrite, and that is one way that you can find your writing community and meet with your writing community online. Finally, where this whole conversation started was with NaNoWriMo. NaNoWriMo is also a great space to announce events, to connect with community, and you have an option when you're in the NaNoWriMo forums to either do that in a global sense and sort of share something with all of the NaNoWriMo community, or to go regional and again reach out to the writers that live closest to you, so that when you are comfortable and they are comfortable with meeting face to face and you have an appropriate venue to do so, you've already started to build those relationships now. I think that's really like the purpose of this episode, is that if we are at a point where we can't meet face to face in person yet, I don't want more time to pass before you start cultivating those relationships, because this is getting ridiculous. It's getting sad that we're not connecting with the people in our, close to home. So I wanted to really just start encouraging people to do that. And again, it's not limited to that. Of course, I love that I have been connecting with people all over the country and the world. So that's almost old news at this point, though. So I want to make sure that we're also coming back and looking at our local spaces. So those are the 4 places really that I think are the first tools in finding community, right? And announcing that here I am, I want to meet with writers, I want to do stuff with you. Who's coming with me? Who's signing up? But in order to ask that question, who's signing up, you've got to give people something to sign up for. So there's lots of different ways that writers meet. And I've done numerous episodes on all of these different types of meetings before. But I think I've almost always spoken about it in terms of face-to-face meetings. They almost all translate to virtual meetings as well. So what can you do when you meet with writers? Obviously, you can have a very casual conversation. You can have a writing chat. You can have a writing book club where you're reading either within the genre that you are all writing in, or you are reading craft books, or you're doing a book swap. You know, those are very casual types of meetings. Well, I mean, if you're reading a craft book, that can get pretty technical where you're studying the craft. And then you have things like the writing prompt parties that I host, or write-ins, which I'm sure you've seen all over the internet. There's all different things that you can do. So how do I run all these different meetings? First and foremost, I do like most of my meetings with my fellow writers to be as face-to-face as possible. So the tool that I use, and I mentioned this earlier, is Zoom. This is not the only tool out there for video chatting. There's plenty of other things. Google has Meet. I think Microsoft has Teams. I mean, the list is endless, and there's more products coming day by day. Facebook has what do they call them? Rooms now that you can go into that I believe can be video, or you can use Facebook Messenger and do a video chat that way. My local book club, actually, we met that way a couple of times during the pandemic, and that was fine. But here's the thing. I use Zoom, so I'm going to just run through Zoom for you really quickly. Zoom is great because you can do face-to-face video. You can have a running along chat at the same time. You can record the Zoom call if you would like. People can opt out of being seen if they're not comfortable being on camera. And it's now sort of ubiquitous. Many people have Zoom. They're familiar with it. There's not too much of a learning curve. But as a host, if you haven't hosted a Zoom call or have a host account, there are different levels that you can use. The free Zoom account, you can be a host with just a free Zoom account. There are limitations, though. If you have just the free account, you can only meet with a group for up to 40 minutes. If you're just a one-on-one, you can go on for, I want to say forever. It's not forever. If you're meeting one-on-one, you have 30 hours. You can do a 30-hour meeting. It's so ridiculous that they even say that. But if you have any more than two people, one-on-one, you will be cut off at 40 minutes. That became a little bit frustrating for me in the beginning because when I did start out, I did start with a free Zoom account. So I do pay for Zoom Pro, which is $14.99 per month. And really the whole reason I started paying was not to be cut off at 40 minutes. So that's one of the benefits that you get. You can have a group meeting for up to 30 hours. Again, I didn't even know I had a limit, but the limit is 30 hours, so that's ludicrous. And you can have up to 1,000 participants. I'm nowhere near doing that, and I think if we're talking about just writing community, that's not really anything that you need to worry about either. If you're doing larger events, of course, that's something completely different. But the cool thing, that another perk that came along with that pro account, is that now I can stream my Zoom events on social media. So I can either stream it in a Facebook group or on a Facebook page, or I can stream it on YouTube. I've never done the YouTube, but I've done Facebook a couple of times. When I have the Happy Campers group, sometimes I'll have my Zoom call, and stream it on Facebook so that if anybody isn't there on time, they can also find it on the Facebook group. And the other thing is also that you have, with the Pro account, 1 gigabyte of cloud recording so that you could also potentially record your meeting and send it out to members that maybe missed it, or members that were there and they just want to have a copy of the video. So those are all the benefits that come along with that. There is another level of Zoom. There's actually 2 different levels above that, but they're both the same price. It's $19.99, and one is a small business account and one is just like a plain business account. And they have other benefits like branding and things that, you know, really cater to businesses. But I think for writing community, if that's really what you're here for and you're looking to meet up with writers and engage with writers, the $14.99 is more than enough. And if you are not feeling crushed by the 40-minute limit, the free is enough, because you can meet with as many people as you want for 40 minutes. It's pretty cool. So what do you do once you have this account? And again, it doesn't have to be Zoom, but that's what I'm familiar with. You have a link and you want to meet up with people. What are you going to do when you meet up with them? The write-ins are pretty simple. You can just invite people to not write alone. Plain and simple. Say, I know you have a writing project. I have a writing project. Why don't we set a time, put it on a calendar, and we come together in this Zoom room and we get some writing done? So I have 2 different models that I use in the write-ins. They're both an hour long. So an hour long write-in with me is either the 15.5 or the 2010 model. And 15.5 means this. I do 3 rounds of 15 minutes of writing and 5 minutes of chat. So that's 15, 15, 15 is 45. And then those 5 minutes in between are the other 15 minutes to make up the hour. So you just come onto the Zoom call and you give 5 minutes for everybody to say hello, get started. What are you going to write today? A little icebreaker. If these are new members, you introduce yourselves. And then you have a timer and you set it for 15 minutes. A great tool to use for this is something called Cuckoo Team. So Cuckoo Team Timer is a timer that you can have on your desktop that you can share the link to for everybody in the write-in with you so that they can see the timer as well. You set it, and then it counts down, and if they want to look at it, they can look at it. If they want to ignore it, they can ignore it. It's fantastic, and the fun thing is that when you have a break in between, Cuckoo Timer has little funny things that are kind of like icebreakers in and of themselves. I would always have some idea for either a conversation point or an icebreaker in between if you're going to be the host, because you want to encourage people to speak. And many writers are introverts, not all writers. So giving people a topic to speak on is much easier than just saying, hey, and hoping somebody speaks. And if you are an introvert, it's very, very helpful to have these tools. I have one book. It's called The Book of Questions. It's an older book, but I will put all links in the show notes. The other model that I used, the one that I said was 2010, is basically 2 rounds of 20 minutes with 10 minutes of chat in between. And it depends on the writer. Sometimes I will put it out to the group and say, what would you prefer? Would you like a longer amount of writing and less chat? And what ends up happening, I find, is that when you are meeting with the same group of people and you really have you've gotten to know each other already, the 2010 model works really well, because it's like we all know we're going to end up chatting too long. So how about we write really long, give ourselves a longer chat, and make sure we don't interrupt our writing so frequently. So the 15.5 is really good for a newer group when you're just getting to know each other. It gives you more opportunities to break the ice and chat a little bit. And then the 2010 10 model is great for like, let's get serious, let's get our writing done, let's sort of stretch out in between, but then get back to work again for the full 20 minutes. So again, what can you do on the in-between? You can have the icebreaker questions, but I also love, and I wanted to mention this, Tammy O'Quinn, who's one of the happy campers, and one of our members of Stop Writing Alone, she was hosting a write-in, man, like all last year probably through the spring of 2021. And what I loved is that whenever she did her write-ins and we got to break time, it wasn't an icebreaker question. Tammy played the music and said, all right, everybody get up and dance. And we had to dance. So a movement break is also a really great idea to do in between on your write-ins. So that is a very simple event that serves two purposes. One, you start to connect with community. You start to learn about other writers that may be near you, or that you just can connect with online. And at the same time, you're getting your writing done. So write-ins are fantastic, and particularly for the introverted writers, they're very comfortable sort of communing spaces, because it's like, I'm just here to do my writing, but at least I'm seeing others. Those are great events to sort of begin with, to start to introduce writers to the idea of not writing alone. The other type of event that I love to introduce people to community with, and I've mentioned this so many times on this podcast, is the writing prompt party. And that is also because it's giving writers an opportunity to write with a little time of meeting and discussing. And so a writing prompt party is really just, you start out by introducing yourself, and everybody gets a chance to introduce themselves. And then you, as a host, provide a writing prompt to the group. Some great tools for this. I won't list all of them. You know, I have loads of writing prompt tools, and you can go to the NV Rivera YouTube channel to see all the writing prompt tools that I share week by week. But some great ones to have that you can use over and over again are any of the Storymatic games. There's Storymatic Classic, there's Rememory, Storymatic Kids is a lot of fun. Those are all great prompt cards that you can use for writing prompt parties, and just give everybody the prompt and set a time for everybody to write. Another tool for writing prompts is the Writer's Toolbox. That's by Jamie Cat Callan. It has 3 different writing games in it. One is a card game, one has popsicle sticks, and another one has like little wheels that you turn. Any one of those is great to introduce in a writing prompt party. And then Rory story cubes. They're just images on cubes. They're dice, basically. You get 9 dice, and you have to roll them and write a story that incorporates all the pictures. Those are just 3 tools that I feel like I could always bring out on a writing prompt party and get people writing. I'm sure you have more. So the idea of this party is that everybody writes. Once you pick your timer, you share it with the group. You as a host set the timer for the writing time. I really wouldn't go anything less than like 15 minutes if you want people to try to write a story. And you can use the Cuckoo timer again, or you can just say, I'll let you know when time is up, and let everybody write. They can turn their cameras off if they feel weird about you staring at their writing face. And then when the time is up, everybody reads what they wrote. Totally understanding that there's going to be weird stuff in there because it's a complete first draft. Maybe they didn't even get to the end of their story. But it's a really great place for writers to get comfortable with each other because they're in a space of vulnerability. And I think that for any of us to make real connections with one another, with other human beings, there has got to be a space for vulnerability. And in friendships and in relationships, that happens over time as we get to know each other and we share deeper secrets, or, you know, we have a moment where we ask for advice about something that we're really frightened about, or we need a hand. These spaces of vulnerability are when our bonds really become tight. And I feel like as writers, as creatives, as artists, we are blessed that within our whole point of gathering, there is vulnerability always. I don't want to hear from anybody that shares a first draft of something that's not a vulnerable act. And so when you are in a community and you are sharing and you are sitting around a table, if it's a live event, or you're sitting around a Zoom call and everybody in there is being vulnerable with their first draft story, that bonds you. That bonds you in that moment. And there's just like this change in energy every single time somebody comes to a writing prompt party for the first time and reads their story. So those are two events that I would really encourage you to, if you are interested in becoming a writing community leader, host, if you just want to get people together and you're not sure what to do, I would start there. And then there's loads of things you can do from there. You can have brainstorming meetings where people you schedule time and say, come together and let's share. I have a question about a character and what they should do next. I'm struggling in this act. My characters did this. Where do I go from there? I need a name. Does anybody know a tool for names? Anything like that. But I strongly believe that in order to get to those spaces where you're asking for advice and things like that, there needs to be a vulnerable bond before. So the write-ins are great to get people in the door, because everybody that's a writer needs time to write, and they're cool, like, yeah, I'm going to write and I'll be with you. That'll get people in the door. But what can truly bond people is a writing prompt party. So I would recommend those two. It's September now. You have time to start building a community before NaNoWriMo comes. NaNoWriMo, people are just going to be craving write-ins, and that's great, and that's, wonderful community. Everybody's sort of in the vulnerability of, I don't know what I'm writing. This is crazy. I'm trying to get so many words in a day, in a week, in the month. But to sustain that, I think you may need some building beforehand. So those are my two suggestions for now. If you have any questions about how to get onto Zoom or what to do, please always feel free to reach out to me. This is a very bare bones sort of explanation, and I'm sure many of you that are listening already have experience with this. But for those that don't, and maybe were feeling a bit like lost when they heard that NaNoWriMo wasn't going to be live again, and they just want to start getting out there, this is one way to do so. So that is all for me. I'm really happy to be back. I'm still out of step, and I'm hoping to get back into my rhythm really soon. But I will be on YouTube again on this Friday. Back into the rhythm of that as well, sharing writing prompts and writing exercises to inspire you to write your whole weekend long. And starting in October this month, Happy Campers will be back for a fall session. And basically that is 2 months of daily writing community. So just a quick overview. What we did in Happy Campers for the last year is that we met Monday through Friday. Every single day of the week had a different theme. We had basically Mondays is goal setting, accountability. Tuesdays is all day write-ins. I think I did 4 different hours of write-ins. Wednesdays is a casual chat meeting. Thursdays was critique, sometimes brainstorming, all different types of things, working and talking about craft. And Fridays are a writing prompt party every single week. So that is going to be happening again starting this October, going all the way through November, so that we have community while we're going through NaNoWriMo. You are invited. Details are to come. That's part of what I'm building up this week, just to get all the information out to you. So what I will have in the show notes is a link for you to sign up for the email list to get that information as soon as it is available. I should say, I limit the size of Happy Campers because I do want it to be a community where everybody feels seen and heard. So the largest I've ever done, and I don't even know if I want to go this big again, was 15 members. So it will be first come, first serve once the doors are open, which will be soon. So make sure you check the show notes for information on that. If it's something that may be of interest to you, if you've heard of it before and have been thinking, I'll wait till NaNoWriMo. Well, here we are. And if you look into the archives of the Stop Writing Alone podcast, you can hear from Happy Campers in previous sessions, how it went, what they were able to accomplish. It's really been wonderful to watch all these writers grow in community. I think that's it for me right now. So I wish you a wonderful week. Happy writing. It's great to be back, and I will talk to you again next Thursday.